My name is Gracie McDowell Mason. This is my husband, Peter Mason.
I'm Andrew, and this is my wife, Micheal.
Hi, I am Sadia Francis, and this is my husband, Nicholas Francis.
We've been married 3 years, married August 30th, 2015.
We have been married 15 years. Our anniversary is January 12th, 2003.
And we've been married for 17 glorious years.
Our anniversary is September 2nd, 2001.
How did we know our spouse was the one?
Yes, Andrew, how did you know I was the one?
It hit me like a ton of bricks because typically I am a loner, and when I found I was spending a lot of time with Raquel, and when I wasn't around her, I was actually looking forward to more time with her, then it hit me like a ton of bricks that, wow, there's something special here that's disturbing my flow.
Okay, so I proposed, so it was actually my birthday, and she was going to take me for a helicopter ride, which I kind of found out myself beforehand. So I said, okay, I was going to do another way, but I'm like, this might be a little twist if I kind of do it on her event. So while we were waiting, I kind of like went off to the bathroom. I spoke to the manager. I told him I actually want to propose while we're doing this helicopter ride. It was 2 different helicopters. So she went in one and I went in one. So
You thought there was going to be one, remember?
I kind of thought it was just going to be one, and then they said, oh, it's just 2 kind of small individual helicopters. So I said, okay, so how am I going to do this? And he told me you can do it over the speaker because there's like a headset and you can communicate with each other. So we flew around for a while, and he said he's going to hover around a certain place, and then you can get on the mic and speak with her directly. So we kind of hovered around a certain area, then I just kind of popped the question. Yeah.
So the first year you're really getting to know your spouse, not because you're together all the time. And I think, that adjustment period of you're no longer just in your own space and the other person's no longer in their space. You've got to figure out how to, live with another person, or your peculiarities or your things that you like a certain way. You kind of have to be understanding of the other person. So I think it's a learning experience that first year. And it made me realize that if I had gotten married 5 years earlier, right out of college, I would not have been ready for that. I think it takes a certain level of maturity to be married. And if you're not at the maturity level, there are things that seem simple that can really bug you, or you're not mature enough to kind of let it go. And so I think that level of maturity, you kind of develop it that first year. You kind of get to know. It's almost like if you're dancing with someone for the first time, and you kind of step on each other's toes before you kind of get into the rhythm, and then it's like, okay, we got this, and then you can kind of go. And I think so that first year did that. And now I think it's just like, a glove in the hand. We dovetail. We know each other well enough to be able to, we can sense each other's, when something is off, if someone's, not feeling well, or, what's going on, or something's bugging you, the other person, you're very in tune. So you can be like, okay, something's off. And, he'll say, well, what's going on? Or I'll say what's happening. And so, yeah, it's like now we're dance partners. We actually have got it down, and we can sense each other's, somebody's off and get back on track.
Yeah, it's something that took some adjustment because we're both established adults. We were employed for some time. We were living our separate lives. We were being productive citizens. and then like, oh, I'm gonna have to bring somebody else into my circle. And I'm a particular type of person that takes a bit of getting used to. So I'm sure that was an adjustment curve, but I think I was at the point where I was willing to let things go and bring someone else in. And once I knew that that was a thing, some of the adjustments in the first year was knowing that learning to not push her. If something doesn't seem right, don't keep pursuing the issue. Okay, just chill, let it go, and eventually things will kind of fall into place and we'll get to talk about things. So now, as Raquel said, we're like, hand in a glove. So we just kind of communicate non-verbally in many ways. Before we had to really verbally communicate, and that took some doing for me to do initially.
When conflict occur, we discuss it on the same day that it happened, because we try not to keep it for another day, and so we approach the issue right away and we have discussion about it, and then we try to solve it the same day.
So Gracie believes that the sun should not go down on your wrath, so you just stay up all night so that the sun doesn't, you don't go to sleep. But but the conflicts can be resolved so easily by just talking to each other, and by God's grace, when that happens, you are forefront. You're at the forefront with solutions. How do we do this so that it doesn't happen again, and so on and so on, and that is where the resolution comes.
And we had made a pledge before not to go to bed upset with each other.
So we
tried to keep that promise that we made to each other.
The way that Nick has helped me with my shortcomings in my life, one thing I could think about is he's helped me to always try to stay positive. I always call him Dr. Phil, but even though I joke around about that, it does, like, things that he does say, it sticks. He's always positive, and if I find myself being negative, I try to, see the good in everything and not let it, put me down, or, things such as that.
A tricky question. It's kind of like the interview where what's your greatest weakness? But the shortcoming probably for me is to start something and see it through. So with Raquel's help, actually, I have seen the benefit of actually making sure a task gets delineated, outlined, and then, okay, how are we going to attack this situation? How are we going to deal with it? And then what are the steps required to see it all the way through? And then the pleasure of actually checking that off a list and saying, okay, that's done. And then we can have a conversation about it. And hey, we have accomplished that task. And that's something that has benefited me outside of the marriage. It has helped me professionally. And I think it helps me also develop that particular shortcoming to be a strength, where now we have children. So we have to worry about, okay, our children are looking at everything we do. And as they say, most communication is in many ways nonverbal. So they're looking at what we're doing, not what we're saying. So I have to actually be conscious in almost in everything I do, that let not any of my natural old habits kind of bubble to the surface. I still have to be an individual in their eyes, but they're going to learn from my example, our example, and say, okay, yeah, that's probably how we need to deal with things.
And adding children definitely adds a different dynamic to your relationship. But how has it changed? I don't know if it's changed so much as it's you're adapting to the situation. So now we have children, we wanted to have children, and we understand, they go through various phases, and every phase affects you differently. We're going into that, we're in that preteen teenager age, and that definitely adds a new element to, I think, child rearing. But I think something that we have been intentional about, or we have really tried to be intentional about, is taking care of us as a couple. Because sometimes you have, you see where people after 30 years, the kids have graduated from college and they're gone, and the parents are getting divorced, and you're like, what happened? And they really kind of were just living separate lives, and the children were just kind of like the only thing that linked them together. They didn't take time to spend with each other. They didn't make themselves a priority, or the relationship a priority. They just kind of, and it's very easy to kind of just get caught up in the day-to-day, you picking the kids up, who's doing this, you got the groceries, and it can become very routine. And then you kind of forget, it's like, oh, when was the last time we, went out on a date or whatever? So I think you have to be intentional about that. I remember reading something once where it says that you don't have to tell your children, not that you shouldn't tell your children that you love them, but you don't have to tell your children that you love them. If they see that their parents love each other and respect and support each other, they feel safe. And so they know that mommy and daddy love them because they see how mommy and daddy interact. And so that's something that I've kept in the back of my mind. And, the kids know, we try to, every once in a while, it's like, okay, so we have our family vacations or a family trip. And there's another time where mommy and daddy are going out. And the kids, we want them to see that that's important. We value each other just as much as we value you, the children. Mommy and daddy value each other and need to spend some time with each other, just, without the kids.
Raising our child in today's world, we both believe that God has the ultimate plan for our children and their education. And one of the things that we had decided from early, that once we have children, we are going to expose them to Christian education. Christian education from the standpoint that the same philosophies that are taught at home must be taught at school and at church, so that the child is bombarded by that education from those three areas. And we're not saying that the child will automatically become good, but it's an idea that God has given to us, and if He says that that's the best, we can trust Him on that.
We're young, so we try to keep our social lives together, even go on dates. I think dates are important because when you guys go out and you experience different things, it's like you're learning something else about each other. So I think that's important, to keep dating each other, and I think that's what keeps the romance going. You don't want to sit home on a couch or what are we experiencing together? What are we learning together? And that's important. That will keep the romance going. What do you think?
I agree.
Whatever.
No, I mean, going on dates is
I agree.
is definitely a way to kind of break outside of the home and just having dinner together, just to see how she interacts at different dates we go on. And sometimes we go on group dates with different people, so different experiences, and it's just a fresh kind of situation.
How do we keep God in the center of our marriage, the ups and downs? Once I read a little proverb that says that the family that prays together stay together, and we make it a part of our life that each morning we do our devotion and we pray together in the morning and at night. And we always have some discussion and some either Bible character or something that happened. I usually tell Peter what happened at work when I come home, and then we always look to see if I did let my light shine in this situation at work, because my co-workers doesn't know, they are not Christians, so I always have to behave in a manner that that pleasing to God, because I let them know that I'm a Christian. So whatever obstacle that come my way, I always try to ask myself the question, what would God do in that situation? And I always come home and tell him what happened and what I did.
Young person, if you were praying once a day, triple that. And make sure that the person that you are choosing for your life partner is somebody that God has chosen for you.
I think sometimes we might have like high expectations, or like we might have this long list. Like, let's say, I'll speak from a woman's point of view, or anybody. Let's say a man or a woman have this list, like, oh, I want this in a woman, or I want this in a man, and that guy or that woman, she's missing two things. So you automatically, like, they're eliminated. You don't want them. So I think that's the issue. We like expect so much, and what are we bringing to the table? Like, are we bringing the same amount? So I think that's important. Like, your expectations might be a little too high. Maybe you could deal with, maybe his hands are too big. I don't know. we could compromise on certain things, because you might miss out on someone who could be the best wife or best husband. So I think that's important, like, not to have all these high expectations. And if we do, make sure whoever is looking for a spouse is bringing the same thing to the table.
Seek God first and obey God's words, because if he said don't do that, don't do it, because he's God and he knows what's best for you. So if he say stay within the fold and date somebody that have the same religious belief. Don't go outside and look for somebody and then make this statement that says that the boys in the church is just as the ones on the outside.
What advice would I give to a young person trying to find their spouse and looking for love? I would say, sounds a little bit corny, but find yourself and find who you want to be in this world. Because I feel like at different phases, you're at a different maturity level. At one phase, you might think this is important, but a couple of years later, that's not important at all. So kind of think about who you are right now, who you want to be, who you aspire to be, and make sure those values align with the person that you're looking for. And take your time. There's no rush. I feel like in church sometimes people are just like, go ahead, do it, get married. Yeah. And they're like, I don't feel like people ask you proper questions. Like, I feel like there's questions someone could ask you, and just to gauge your kind of relationship that you have now before you get into marriage, they just kind of push you along. But, take your time, and there's no rush. Just think about who you are now and who you want to be and your values and what you will or will not compromise on.